Welcome to the National Newspaper Publicists Association's Let It Be Known. Calls are growing for a police officer to be fired and charged after an 11-year-old Mississippi boy was shot by police after calling 911 for help. We're going to have some details on that. Also, AARP is sounding the alarm on scams and frauds that primarily affect Black people and those with little means. We're going to discuss that as well. A roundtable took place just yesterday with the AARP and the National Newspaper Publishers Association, and we will have details. Carmelo Anthony announced his retirement, as we know, earlier this week from basketball. Today, he names his favorite teammate of all time. Guess who that is? I think I guessed it when the question was asked. Who do you think was Carmelo's favorite teammate? And I'll give you a little hint. It's not LeBron James. And the question is, will LeBron follow suit? Because he too made some cryptic comments about his own future. And perhaps two of the three worst members of Congress, aside from, of course, George Santos, had embarrassing weeks, but aren't Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene already in embarrassment? The latest from these two MAGA Republicans today. And the official kickoff to summer is upon us, and holiday travel is at pre-pandemic high. All of this and more, along with Power 96's revelation this morning on Let It Be Known. Power 96 is letting us be known what he's planning to do. He said, let the summer road trips begin. The first stop is the Black Wall Street Legacy Festival. He says he will get to see none other than Beyonce. Oh, no, not Beyonce. Rihanna. No, not Rihanna. Club Nouveau. He said, I will not embarrass my wife with my 1994 dance moves this time. Why not? Go all out. It is the holiday weekend. It's the start of summer, the unofficial start of summer anyway. So Power 96 bust a move. And good morning, David Youngblood. David, I know David's ready for the weekend. So we began in Jackson, Mississippi. And gosh, when we say Jackson, Mississippi, obviously you expect some issues. And here is a really serious issue. Calls are growing for a police officer to lose his job. And he probably should, based on the evidence that we have available to the public anyway. But he's charged after an 11-year-old boy was shot after the 11-year-old called police. His name is Adrian Murray. He was seriously wounded early Saturday, last Saturday, by a police officer responding to a domestic call at his home. What happens next is not yet been disputed. Apparently, one of his mother's exes had come to the house, banging on the door, causing a disturbance. And the mother told the boy to call 911, which he did. Police came. Why was the guns drawn? And he comes around the corner, the story goes, in the living room, comes around the corner to the front door as the police enter the home, and immediately is shot. And this young boy says, his mother says, he said, why did he shot me? Why did he shoot me? I didn't do anything wrong. How heartbreaking is that? The boy's attorney, Carlos Moore, said this should not have happened. The main question he's been asking is, why did this happen to me? The child suffered a collapsed lung, lacerated liver, and fractured ribs. According to the lawyer says he's blessed to have survived, but he's still in pain emotionally and mentally. On this week, yesterday, in fact, a group of protesters called for accountability in the shooting of the unarmed boy. There was no weapons involved in this except the one that the police officer was carrying, according to multiple reports. There's been, again, the city has not refuted these claims. They say that they're not yet releasing body cam footage, but the attorney says that this is what happened. They just came in guns a-blazing. particularly this particular office, the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, said it is investigating the shooting. It happened at 6 a.m. too. So imagine how Trump, at any time it would be traumatizing, but 6 a.m., this had to be especially traumatizing. No officers, of course, were injured during the incident. And the press release from the city says a minor occupant of the residence received significant injuries and has been transported to a local hospital. The problem is, are they going to treat him in this case like a minor situation instead of a major incident? This young boy, there was no reason to shoot him. I don't understand the reason you could have you could justify this. And that is what the argument has become. How do you justify? You come in, the guy wasn't even in the house, the individual that they called the police on. And then here's the other thing. There is no evidence to suggest that the man that they came for, they were called for, has ever been brought to custody. So what was the point? Power 96 says the sad part is the police officer is on paid leave for shooting an 11-year-old. And that's how it goes. Paid leave, desk duty at times. The state investigation agency did not provide any additional details. It's actually the Indianola Police Department near Jackson, and they have referred everything to the city attorney's office, and they say that they will await the results of an investigation in this matter. But again, 11-year-old boy is still recovering from being shot by a police officer inside his home down in Mississippi. It just boggles the mind that we continue to talk about this day in and day out. The family says termination should have been the first move here, as well as an arrest. The lawyer says you don't give someone a paid vacation who committed such a reckless act. He said he expects the family to file a federal civil rights lawsuit. He says we need to hold our law enforcement officers to a higher standard and ensure that they are trained to de-escalate situations and use non-lethal methods whenever possible. Police officers, it reminded me, I just saw this situation just the other day. David says they should refer to the Department of Justice. Hopefully they will, particularly when you have a case like this. It actually should automatically, I think, go to the Department of Justice. But it reminded me just the other day, they refused in New York City to charge two officers who hit a pedestrian. I believe it was in Brooklyn. I think they said that the officer was watching a soccer game on his phone and he was speeding with his lights blaring, I guess, in a non-emergency situation. But Tish James surprisingly said that there is no evidence of a crime and that police who are in, when their lights are going, their sirens are blaring, they're pretty much immune to prosecution for any type of vehicular accident. Video is horrifying. If you are the faint of heart, I wouldn't advise you to go to YouTube and look it up. But if you're not, go look it up. Excuse me. Michelle Delicious Delights. Once again, we are not brought to you by Michelle's Delicious Delights yet, but maybe one day Michelle's Delicious Delights will sponsor the program. She says, good morning, and me and distinguished guests, and those distinguished guests this morning is me. So AARP says scams and frauds are significant problems in America, and AARP, in partnership with the NNPA, has continued to sound the alarm. Recent statistics in an AARP NNPA roundtable revealed that 7 in 10 Black adults think scams and fraud have hit a crisis level, and 85% of Black adults agree that victims should report the crime to law enforcement. The crisis is especially fraught within the Black community. And AARP officials said it emphasizes the need for all to work together to reframe the discussion around fraud, victim victimization. This is an issue that we highlighted a year ago as well, said Kathy Stokes, the AARP's Director of Fraud Prevention Programs, who offered new insights yesterday into the impact of fraud and scams in the Black community. And the AARP also offered tips for protecting consumers. One essential tool that they highlighted again was the AARP's Fraud Watch Network, a free resource where individuals can learn how to proactively spot scams, get guidance from their fraud specialists if targeted, and feel more secure knowing that AARP advocate an advocate of AARP will do so for you at the federal, state, and local levels in order to protect consumers and enforce the law. Stokes said protecting consumers goes back to AARP's founding. There is a need to rethink fraud in America, she says. Of course, AARP is the interest group focusing on issues affecting America's over 50 population, but this, they say, is for those of all ages to check out because fraud not only attacks those 50 and over. Of course, we know seniors are very vulnerable to scams and fraud, but it victimizes just about everyone, particularly those most vulnerable. So AARP really wants to lift up, particularly going into the summer season and the holiday season. One of the things that I recall them emphasizing, which I thought was interesting, was phone calls that seniors are getting saying that this is, your grandson or your granddaughter. They give a name, they find out a name. I was in a hit and run accident, and I need this money for bail immediately. And the grandparents are sending the money through one of the channels, whether it's Cash App or whatever, Zelle, or even oh gosh, I'm forgetting the other tool that folks use to send money, but various different tools that they send money. So folks, be on the lookout for these things and look out for your older ones who might not be as quick in their thinking process as they were in the past. So really, AARP and the NNPA is actively trying to inform the public about scams and frauds. So since declaring his retirement from basketball, Carmelo Anthony, one of my favorite New York Knicks of all time, has been getting much well-deserved praise for his remarkable 20-year career in the NBA. He was a 10-time All-Star, 6-time All-NBA team awardee, and he was considered one of the greatest scorers in basketball history. And we all know he won an NCAA championship in Syracuse in his freshman year. Not only did Anthony impact the game with his tremendous basketball talent, but he was also considered a great teammate to his peers. And during his time in the NBA, Melo said that the teammate he felt most connected with, his favorite teammate, was none other than J.R. Smith, who was like a younger brother to him. J.R., of course, a lot of people had their mixed thoughts about JR. We loved him when he was with the Knicks. Carmelo loved him when he played with him with Denver and the Knicks, and he went on to win championships. J.R. Smith did with the Cleveland Cavaliers, with LeBron James, and then again with the Los Angeles Lakers during the pandemic-shortened 2020 season. They won in the bubble. Carmelo says, I have had a lot of teammates, but my favorite, though, is JR. Coming into the game, I felt like, for me, I may be one of two people who he could relate to. And I was myself, and probably at the time, AI, meaning, of course, Allen Iverson. Anthony shared in an interview with Sports Illustrated that he and Smith knew each other from the McDonald's League, and they bonded immediately. He said he thoroughly enjoyed J.R. Smith's his camaraderie with J.R. Smith, again with Denver and later in New York, where Carmelo was the big star in Madison Square Garden. They were in their primes too when they played together for the Knicks, and they were very close. They were on and off the court. And any time there was controversy surrounding J.R. Smith, it was Carmelo who stood up for his little brother. They're about a year apart in age, but he was always treated Smith was as Carmelo's little brother, and he embraced that role. The two really bonded. And so Carmelo says J.R. Smith was his favorite teammate. No surprise to me. I kind of felt when I saw the headline, I knew that it would be J.R. Smith. The question now becomes whether LeBron James will retire. LeBron James did tweet some iffy things about his future. The Lakers were bounced by the Denver Nuggets. They got swept in the Western Conference Finals, and now he is left to contemplate. He's accomplished just about everything you can accomplish, several championships, and people are arguing to this day whether he's the greatest, whether Kobe was the greatest, whether Michael Jordan was the greatest. I have a different take on who I think was the greatest. The late, great Bill Russell, I believe, was the greatest NBA player of them all. Moving on to the world of politics. Oh boy. Representative Lauren Boebert. she, how do we even begin this? She told a heartwarming tale of how her third son came to be by not being able to afford birth control. Let me get to that in a moment. I want to just get to Power 96's comment. He says, only Willis Reed and Walt Frazier can save the Knicks. Rest in peace, Mr. Reed. Reed is Reed, Power 96. Before, you are just horrible right now. The Knicks are doing well. They're moving up. Leave them alone. So anyway, going back to Marjorie Taylor Greene, this past Tuesday, the committee met for a hearing on the quote role of pharmacy benefit managers and prescription drug markets. And Lauren Boebert, who's 36 years old and has 4 children, she announced recently too that she had become a grandmother after her 17-year-old son and his partner had a baby. And during the hearing, Lauren Boebert questioned a witness, Kevin Duane, a doctor of pharmacy. Boebert asked the pharmacist, do you see that patients leave their prescriptions at pharmacies because they can no longer pay for it? And of course, the pharmacist says they absolutely do in my pharmacy. Yes, that happens more than it should make anyone comfortable. And then here comes Lauren Boebert's classic tale. She says, I actually have a fun little story. She says, my staff is probably going to talk to me about this later, but I left a prescription at a pharmacy once. I went to get birth control, and I was there at the counter and went to pay for it. And the price was very, very high. I said, wow, is this a 6-month prescription? No, ma'am. This is 1 month. And I said, and here's the line, folks. Wait for it. It's cheaper to have a kid than pay for birth control. She went on to have another child afterwards, of course, because she didn't buy that birth control. And now she divorced her husband, served him with papers in a very unconventional way, which is a whole other story. The husband, of course, when she got engaged to him, just before they got married, he was charged with lewd behavior, public lewd behavior. This is Lauren Boebert, the one who loves to run around with guns and arm her family with guns, and during the holiday season decorates their Christmas tree with guns and poses in front of Christmas trees with guns. Well, she says turning down the birth control actually turned out to be a really great thing. But she says, I personally experienced that when times were tough. She just turned the birth control down. Now, I'm going to leave it with this. When times were tough, she turned down birth control. So every time times got tough, she decided to get pregnant or something. I don't know. I mean, goodness grief. Anyway, Lauren Boebert. Hopefully that wasn't too tabloidy, but I mean, we have this stuff. These are elected officials. elected officials talking like this. That's what makes it trouble. A federally a federal official, someone in Congress. And speaking of Congress, Lauren Boebert. Oh my gosh. Marjorie Taylor Greene. How about this? She's been known, of course, to hurl insults at the president and other political leaders from the House floor. She's the one that has absolutely no care about Robert's Rules of Order or decorum or anything like that. Well, she was leading the whatever from the House floor. She was pounding the gavel, calling for decorum. And Democrats, of course, appreciated the irony of the Georgia Republican trying to get an unruly chamber in order when it's her who's mostly the disruptor. For example, you remember she shouted out that President Biden was a liar during his State of the Union address. But this week, she was managing House proceedings while Majority Leader Steve Scalise spoke on the chamber floor about the debt limit. And listen to this. Do we have the audio there? Well, there was absolutely no order. In fact, when she started calling for decorum, the Democrats and even some in her own party started laughing and laughing out loud and laughing almost uncontrollably.
Be in order. Yeah, as you heard.
It's come on, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the representative from New York, and Cori Bush of Missouri. They led the charge. They were shouting from their seats. And how about Adam Schiff? Adam Schiff says, "I haven't laughed this hard in a while." He said, Marjorie Taylor Greene called for decorum on the House floor. It's a shame, but this, it's really a shame that these are the elected officials. These are the folks, that particular chamber, that body of Congress there, they have to decide if the U.S. is going to default on its massive debt next week. And ironically, in his ill-fated campaign launch, Ron DeSantis said it was Donald Trump who added $8 trillion or something like that to the national debt. So when you stop and listen, they eat their own. They turn it on their own. So pay attention. And Michelle Madison says, as a woman, I know that birth control is less expensive than raising children. What drug is she on? In fact, the one study says that the average cost of raising a child to age 18 is more than $300,000. And I would imagine that it's probably even more than that now too, Michelle. So yeah, absolutely. And the cost of birth control, I don't know, $10 if you got a prescription. Do you need a prescription? I don't know these things. The unofficial start of the summer travel season is here, with airlines hoping to avoid the chaos of last year and travelers scrounging for ways to save a few bucks on pricey airfares and hotel rooms. Some travelers say they will settle for fewer trips than they hope to take, or they will drive instead of fly. The number of people going through U.S. airports hit pandemic era highs last weekend, and those records are almost certain to be broken over the Memorial Day holiday. AAA predicts that 37 million Americans will drive at least 50 miles from home this weekend, an increase of more than 2 million from Memorial Day last year. But it remains a little bit below the 2019 pre-pandemic numbers, yet lots of people on the road. Lots of people on the road. The Transportation Security Administration, TSA, expects to screen 10 million travelers between Friday and Monday, a 14% increase over the holiday last year, and more than in 2019 before the pandemic. With more travelers comes more expense. The average rate for a U.S. hotel room last week was $157 a night, which is up from $150 in the same week last year, according to hotel data provided by STR. And the average daily rate for other short-term rentals, such as Airbnb and Vrbo, rose to $316 last month, up 1.4% from a year ago. And so there is, though, a little bit of good news for drivers. The national average for a gallon of regular gasoline, $3.56, down from $4.60 at this time last year. And also renting a car is a little bit cheaper than a year ago, according to AAA travel company Expedia. Wait a minute, there's a sponsor right there for the show. Let it be known, brought to you by Expedia. But Expedia says larger inventories let the companies rent more cars at lower prices. And again, for air travelers, airline industry officials say carriers have fixed problems that contributed to a surge in flight cancellations and delays last summer when 52,000 flights were canceled from June through August. Airlines have hired about 30,000 workers since then, including thousands of pilots, and they are using bigger airplanes to reduce flights, but not the number of seats. And Power 96 said, sad to say, but I look forward to watching the Spirit Airlines fights on social media. Spirit got to get it together. They got to get it together. Spirit, Frontier, all you guys. I'm not flying them. Wait, maybe I will. If Spirit says, we're going to be your sponsors. Let it be known. Brought to you by Spirit Airlines. There you go. Folks, that's all we got for the week. We know that it's going to be a nice long weekend for many. She said, Michelle Madison says she's sorry for cursing, but Barrington curses all the time. He's one of my role models. I love it. And you didn't curse. She says, I'm going to go back to her quote that I did not read in its entirety. She says, as a woman, I know that birth control is damn, it's like Florida Evans, damn sure less expensive than raising children. She says what drug she is on. So no, to Barrington, that would be like saying dag. She says Barrington is one of her role models. Damn. Florida Evans said damn. So if Florida Evans can say damn, we could all say damn. How about that? Thanks for joining us. Have a safe weekend, whatever you choose to do, whether you're flying, whether you're driving, whether you're staying home, because sometimes today the home is not even safe. And Barrington, Power 96 says Barrington is straight up gangster. And Bobby Henry says, if you come to Florida, buy black, including the West Side Gazette. Make sure that you pick up the West Side Gazette in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in that area. I'm sure he stretches even further. In fact, go online and you can get it anywhere. So buy black, Bobby says. Thanks for joining us. Have a safe weekend, and we'll see you next week.